Hey everybody, today I'm going to be working on an iPhone 7 that was sent here because it's hung on an Apple logo. I'm sure that's no surprise to any of you that I've got an iPhone 7 that's hung on an Apple logo. I'm going to try to decide if this is a boot loop issue, if it's a hung on an Apple logo issue, and see exactly what we're getting into. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pop the cover off of this thing, and we're going to see what it does on a DC power supply, because what I want to decide right away is if it is not booting up or if it's looping due to a short somewhere, or if it's not booting up due to like baseband being offline or something screwy with the audio IC. So let's go ahead and take this phone apart. And this phone has most likely already been in another repair shop. I don't see any markings on the housing yet, so let's try not to make any new ones. There we go. You know, it almost feels like I might be the first one to open this one. Nah. It's coming open a little too easy. Okay, gonna move away from that camera and do this over here. I used to heat, no, I'm not the first one to open this. I used to heat these up, but I don't anymore. I just pry them open. Gotta be careful not to open it too far, or you'll wind up tearing a flex cable. Alright, so here we go. I've got an iPhone 7 here open, and I might actually be the first one to open it, so hopefully nothing's damaged. If anything's damaged, I won't have anybody other than myself to blame it on. Alright, so let's take the screws out of this dude. Using the fancy tri-wing driver here. Wait a minute. Did the standoff post come out with that? Uh-oh. Our standoff post came unscrewed with that one. Maybe I'm not first. It is possible that it could just be a software problem and updating the software would fix it. But with my experience on the iPhone 7, I hardly ever get that lucky. See, we've got the standoff post in the bottom of that plate, so that was a little bit different there. So what I'm going to do here immediately, I'm going to disconnect the battery, and I'm going to hook a DC power supply. Oh look, the battery's already disconnected. Is that because of that plate was stuck to it? It's nice weather outside today. I might just take the day off. Let's see. I'm going to pretend like that's not the problem. I'm going to go ahead and finish disconnecting the battery, but seriously, the battery was loose. If that's the deal on this phone, I'm going to have to wait to post this one until I post a serious repair video, or people are going to think that I only post stuff that I don't actually have to work on. Alright, so I've got the power supply hooked up here. I'm going to fold the phone over, and we're going to turn the power supply on wave display so we can see what this does over time. And as you can see, since I've turned it on here, we're starting a new graph. One of these lines is for amperage, the bottom line, and then the top line here is our voltage. So the voltage will remain steady, and the amperage is going to show us what the phone is drawing. So I'm going to press the power button here. We're going to see it's drawing 70 milliamps, 150. Okay, so now we've got an Apple logo on the screen. We're going to continue to let this thing start up, and what we're going to do here is we're just going to watch the DC power supply, and what I'm looking for is nothing really high. If this thing goes all the way up and it pegs out my current limiter at 2 amps and it just, you know, it's holding up in the high 1.5 to 2 amp range and the phone's getting hot, then we know we're dealing with a shorted component. But if this thing sits here and I can't really say exactly what it's going to do for sure, but if we don't get any ridiculously high current and the phone just sits on an Apple logo, or if it boot loops, then we could be looking at one of our signature failures that we've been running into, or could be something silly like just needing a software update too. So yeah, it's like, let's see. What do I do here? Do I rip the phone apart, and do I remove chips off the bottom of the board, reball them, install little wires and stuff, or do I plug it into a computer and run a software update? You would think that one would go straight for the software update, but with what I've been running into on the iPhone 7, it's just, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I don't know if I've ever had this be a software problem, but it could be. Let's see what this thing does. We have to give it a really long time to start up because there is a pretty big current spike. That was probably an amp. 1.5 amps even. So now we're just killing time to decide whether or not this phone is just taking forever to start up or if it's actually going to lock up on an Apple logo. They said it hangs on an Apple logo, so it probably does. One other thing that we can do, some of these hung on Apple logo, iPhone 7s. I'm hooking up a USB cable. Some of these hung on Apple logo, iPhone 7s, let's turn the sound up good and loud, are actually started all the way up. They're just not going past the Apple logo. So we're going to connect a USB cable, and it's connecting to my PC. Yeah, now it's telling me that there's no SIM card in the phone that I'm attempting to activate. So somebody's already tried software on this one. Now, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to disconnect the USB cable. And we are going to turn the power supply off. And hope that I don't accidentally open this iPhone 7 as if it were an iPhone 6. That would be smooth, wouldn't it? All right, so we're going to finish taking this phone apart. Now, I'm going to explain what I just decided here. I decided that we didn't have any excessive heavy loads. What do we do? Switch to Phillips? All right, so we've switched from the Tri-Wing to the Phillips here. I verified that we didn't have any excessive heavy loads and that this phone actually does boot. This phone boots all the way up to... I need better light over here in certain angles. This phone boots all the way up to... Oh no, I've got it confused with a 7 Plus. I'm looking for the third screw. Dude. Okay, so we've got another one spinning out here. This is stuck so hard, I'm going to go ahead and put this screw... I'm worried that the bracket's going to spin and actually cut the cable. That's how hard that this one's stuck. So I'm putting this screw back in to stabilize it, and then I'm going to go back to this one. There we go. There we go. Alright, so let's get our screen assembly out of the way here. I have no idea what format I'm going to upload this video in. I've been through enough of these now that I can pretty confidently say that this is going to end in success. Alright, so let's set our screen assembly off to the side. We're not going to need the power supply for a minute, so we're going to kick that to the side. And we're going to continue to tear down this iPhone 7. It is nice to run into signature failures. I don't know, there's a lot of these signature repairs and things that I run into that are just really easy fixes. Okay, I better shut up. This isn't really an easy fix, but there are some of these signature failures that I have blasted out into the world and made look easy. And what that's caused is a lot of my job queue is all prior repair attempts. And a lot of the things that I would normally try have already been tried. Some of them are complete utter failures where they've just totally destroyed them, but others are taking away my easy work. It's like I hardly ever get to work on anything anymore that is just a straightforward signature problem, because a lot of everything that's being sent here has already had most of the stuff that I would try first really quickly and easily already done. So when it comes to this really common boot looping iPhone 7 problem, I say with great hesitation that I'm going to go ahead and post up this video. I think everybody's got their boot looping iPhone 7 videos up. Did I say boot looping? I meant locking up. It doesn't start up all the way. It hangs on an Apple logo. And I have had enough of these doing that now where it's... I don't know, I guess it... Yeah, this is going to be audio. Because if it was baseband, the phone wouldn't start all the way up. It would just loop. This one's locking up. And I have seen the audio also looping them. I've done baseband reballs and stuff, and it's still boot looped. And thought, wonder if it's a dang known audio flaw. And I pull the audio IC off of it. That one's broken. This phone has seen some stress. All right, let's just keep taking this apart. Lost my train of thought. Did I forget any screws? I haven't taken apart 10,000 iPhone 7s, but I bet I'm approaching 100 pretty quickly. All right. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to peel back our sticker here on the back. Very carefully, because I like to reuse these. They don't stick back on worth a crap whenever they're cold. But if you, while the board is hot, if you put that sticker back on and press on it, it'll stick back on nice and firm. And let's have a look at this board under the microscope, shall we? Now, I think on this one, I'm gonna do this one a little different. I'm gonna use my blade flip technique on this one. I use the blade flip technique more whenever I am worried about a jitter here or there. And there's nothing like taking off one of these big old ICs like this and dealing with a little bit of a jitter that causes you to wipe things around. So I like to use my little flip technique, and it also, the flip technique will allow you to minimize the amount of heat that you're putting on the board. Now, on the iPhone 7 here, we do have nearby, we've got an underfilled PMIC right over here, so we want to be careful with that. And for the underfilled PMIC, I'm going to lay this piece of metal shield right over it like that. Hang on, is that solder? We're going to lay it right over there like that. And I'm also going to be laying a metal shield here over the NAND on this side. And we're going to begin heating this up. Let's add just a tiny drop of flux here. Probably should have peeled the top side stickers off. I usually do that. We'll see how bad they look when I'm done. Okay, and we are going to start heating this up. Now, I hardly have anywhere to put my blade under. So I'm going to be trying to get under maybe this corner over here. Or, yeah, let's go for this corner. Yeah, I can get right under there. Alright, so let's start heating this chip up. Now, I have been working with my air on 350C for the most part, but on the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus, I do raise my temperature up. This one I'm going to do at 390C, and I've got the airflow set at 40 out of 100, and I'm also going to take... I'm going to quit stalling here and do this job so that you can watch me do this. I'm going to take right up here at the top left corner, I'm going to make a little, just a little scratch. And I'm doing that to mark where my arrow is on the chip. Alright, here we go. We're going to start heating this up and remove it. Yeah, I haven't done near as many of these. I haven't done as much of these as I have touch ICs to be comfortable like I am on these, like those with these. I shouldn't even talk. Let me just do this job and not talk today. Alright, see flux starting to bubble. And just as the solder is right to melt, this chip's going to pop right up off there. Oops. Seriously? Oh, this is terrible. Alright, here we go. Let's get this chip to float. There we go. That's what we're looking for. Alright, now while this thing is as hot as I can get it, we're going to go ahead and scrub these pads down with the iron. I'm actually not touching it with the iron. I'm using just the blob of solder on the tip to collect more and more. Now, I realize I will be mixing leaded and lead-free, but I'm not that picky. because this will be a very stable repair. And I'm not worried about this coming loose after I've soldered it on. Alright, so let's clean this up with alcohol. This is going to be like the Touch IC replacements on the iPhone 6. It's like, oh, you got problems with, or iPhone 6 Plus. Oh, you got problems with touch? Reball Mason and put the M1 jumper on it. This is the audio IC, yet strangely enough, it does cause issues with laggy touch. And the fix, you can probably get away with some of them, like on the touch failures. You can get away with just reballing this IC and putting it back on. But the actual fix, the true fix, lies in this pad over here, this one right here. Just like the M1 on the Mason on the iPhone 6, just like the M1 pad on it, it loses its contact with the trace here, and there winds up being a microscopic break. And I have heard of others having to jumper some of these other ones. However, all of these that I've done, I have only jumpered this trace right here. So we're going to go ahead, just like on M1. I'm actually trying to let the board cool down a little bit because it's a little too hot for me to lay my hand on it. So just like on M1, we're going to strip this here back. Man, that board's hot. I should reball the chip and then do the trace next time. Okay, I know it looks perfectly connected. This might be one of the ones that would be fine. Some of these you could just reball it and put it back on, just like on the touch failure repairs. But there is a certain percentage of them that, just like on the touch repairs, will wind up coming back because it wasn't actually just an issue with the ball coming loose from the pad. It winds up being an issue with the pad coming loose from the trace. And I have seen some of these now. The IC comes right off, and then there's pads right there in that area that are oxidized, just like on the iPhone touch failures, or the 6 Plus and sometimes 6 touch failures. All right, so we're going to trim our little piece of wire off. We're going to add a little jumper to this trace. This is some sort of a clock line, I believe. I'm not going to pull up the schematics and look at it because it's not that important right now. I just need to fix the phone. This is some sort of a clock line, and I believe it's shared with the touch circuit as well. So once you get enough garbage spewing out on this clock line, you actually start to interfere with touch as well. Let's see, and I haven't just done hundreds of these like I have touch repairs, so these are a little bit more tedious for me. We're going to add a tiny bit of flux to the board there. We're going to get a little solder on our micro pencil. Jeez, that's actually a whole bunch of solder, and I messed up the pad next to it. Look there, it came off. Looks familiar, huh? Does that look familiar? Or what? I just barely touched this thing and it came off. Just like the iPhone 6 touch failures. Gosh. Do these things. I've done several of these this week. Just this week alone. And never do my nerves jitter like they do whenever I'm recording. It's ridiculous, guys. It's really ridiculous. Especially as competent as I am. So we're going to get this up really far here. There we go. I'm going to stop right there. The reason why I'm trying to make that so long is because I want it to go all the way up. And I want to solder it to the side of this thingy. As always, I'll leave this portion of the video unedited so you can see what sort of misery I go through to put that jumper in place. And we're going to trim off our... Let's zoom in and see if I can show this to you a little more clearly. We're going to trim off our excess wire right here. Okay. Let's get that out of there before we lose it. Nothing like losing a piece of wire on the circuit board. Okay. I like to have this here a little more controlled than that, but this is going to be fine. We're going to trim this up here. There we go. Oh, it looks like crap. Okay, let me... oh no! Everybody's going to know I'm a noob. I'm going to try to get the little bit of excess solder off of this pad. Okay, that'll be fine. You know, just for the sake of this video, I'm going to go ahead and clean that up with alcohol so you can see what my crappy jumper looked like. And if it's too crappy, I'll redo it, but I don't think it's too crappy. I think it's going to be robust. I think this phone's going to boot. I think it's going to show me a welcome screen. So it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it's going to work. So the next step in this repair is to reball the audio chip that came off of it, because there's nothing like, just like the iPhone 6 touch failures, there's nothing wrong with the chip. It's a problem with the PCB itself. Sometime when you get a chance, take an iPhone 7 Plus housing without the screen and without the board and see how easy it bends. It's like cardboard. It is so flimsy. It's no wonder these boards have issues with stuff breaking loose on a board that does this. The next thing to do is to reball this chip. So let's sit our old chip, our oldie but goodie chip, under the microscope. We are going to add some flux to it. Yeah, this was just like the M1 failure on iPhone 6 Plus. And on the iPhone 6 Plus, every time that pad came off, I thought I tore it. Like, I tore a pad. And now when pads come off that easily, I move on. Because I know, after working on hundreds of these, I know I didn't tear that pad. I know I had a wire soldered to it, and I'm a little jittery. All right, so there we go. I've hovered a solder ball over the top of all of these pads, which you'll see gave us a nice clean coating of leaded solder. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to clean this off with alcohol. Oh, geez. And you have to use, if you're using, look at this, if you're using my flux, Chip Quik SMD 291, or probably just about any tacky flux, you got to use a lot of alcohol. Otherwise, the tacky flux will try to eat your Q-tip. Let go of my Q-tip before my YouTube viewers realize that I don't know how to reball ICs. Alright, so there we go. We've got a chip cleaned up nice and snazzy. Now, I'm going to use my iPhone 7 stencil here that really, really, really sucks. That's the one. And we're going to pick out the really crappy cutout that they have for the audio chip. I believe this is it. There we go. I've been torn between really cheap stencils and really... my paste is getting a little dry. That might actually help. I have been torn between really cheap stencils and really expensive stencils. I find that the cheap stencils heat up really fast, and for smaller chips can really help you work faster. Compared to the expensive stencil, you got to work the heat up really slow and be careful that it don't go kapop. And I don't know, maybe I just haven't had the right expensive stencils. So we're going to hold this down, and I'm going to start to warm this up. Look at that huge hunk of adhesive stuck on my tweezers. Now you got to be careful with these cheap thin ones too. You got to warm them up really slow so they don't warp. But I can warm them up faster. Okay, we're going to start at the bottom right corner. We're going to sweep across this chip. There we go. And then we'll pop the stencil up off the top. Leave the chip on the table. Wow, that was actually really dry. There's not hardly any flux on that at all. I'm going to add a tiny bit of flux to that. And I'm going to go ahead and refloat the balls. There we go, center them all up. Okay. So we're going to set that aside. The very next thing that I do, now in a lot of my previous videos, you've seen me do a whole lot of reball and mason ICs. Back then I would always leave my stencils funky and nasty, and I don't do that anymore because whenever I need to pull out a stencil and go, just debris getting in the way drives me crazy. So after every single reball job, my next step is to not continue the repair. My next step is to clean my tool and clean the spot on the bench here so that I don't lay my arm in flux. I'm going to go ahead. We're going to add a little baby drop of flux to this. God, look at the size of that flux. Ah, no! That's way too much flux. The microscope, the single camera doesn't do this justice. Like, you don't have any depth perception. That was a huge blob of flux. Alright, so that should still be enough. I removed a bunch of it. Now, let's go ahead and take our chip. We're going to sit it back on here. We're going to turn it upside down and have a good look at its nice shiny balls. They're all good. Let's see. Let's shield the PMIC. I'm not going to worry about shielding the NAND this time. It has Kapton tape over it. And I'm also dealing with leaded solder. I won't have to get this near as hot. Alright, so we're going to try to line this up the best that I can. I would have normally flipped this around, but since I'm recording a video, I did not. I'm going to botch this right in front of a camera. You will float, and you will like it. Alright, let's use my blade because it's smaller. Am I even... Well, I didn't put it on yet. Alright, so you haven't missed anything. Okay, let's continue to heat this up. I'm going to heat it up until I see it wiggle and fall down into place, and then I'm going to give it a nice firm jiggle with my blade here. Are we in focus? Focus for the big event here, for the finishing move. The big O of board repair here. Here comes the big O. Ooh. Okay, we gave it a jiggle. And now we're going to go ahead and clean our flux off of it while the board is still hot. Alright, so we're going to take our alcohol here. Ooh. Let's record a video today and not clean out the alcohol bath. Alright, so we're going to just kind of flood this whole area with this stuff that's in this container that is mostly alcohol. There shouldn't be any conductive debris in here. Okay, and while this is still good and runny, I'm gonna blast it out of there. And there we go. Now that I'm doing a boot looping iPhone 7, regardless of what the problem is, these are all going to come in with the audio IC tore off of them and pads missing. And guys, I really got to say, I'm making a process that is really, really quite tedious and difficult to get right. There's any number of things during this process that could have went wrong, and I would have screwed this up for the next guy being able to repair this and for it being a profitable job for him, for it even to be possible. So I do have to say that I have found myself starting to question just how easy I should be making this look on YouTube, because although I pulled this off just now on the first try, I'm not going to do any editing here. You know, I'm not faking anything here. I pulled this off on my first try. It wasn't easy, and I could have had the hot air pointed a slightly different direction. I could have given it just a few seconds too long. You know, I could have easily completely fried this board. You know, who knows? Maybe I did. Let's see. Let's heat this board back up because I skipped an important step. Also, I need to dry the alcohol, so we're going to heat this back up. And while the board's hot, we'll put the sticker back on it. Yes. Vlogging. I love posting videos on YouTube. I like making repair videos. But once in a while, the repair videos that I post, they come back and they bite me right squaw in the ass. Alright, so let's put the sticker back on while this thing's hot. Flip it over, and I push on it and let it cool with pressure on the sticker. We've got the sticker stuck back on the bottom, fairly firm. We're going to slap it back in the housing, and I did put the sticker back on it because I am reasonably confident that this one is leaving here fixed, and I don't think I'm going to take the board back out. Now, I'm not confident enough to put all the screws back in it. We're going to loosely put the board in. We're going to put the board in the housing, and then wonder if this ground connection here is actually needed. That's weird because this one's actually broken on this phone. So we're going to loosely put it back in the housing here, but I'm going to do it in such a way that I don't have to backtrack. So we'll take this one little screw that goes under this cable here, put it back in. Like I said, I don't want to backtrack. All right, we'll plug this back in. We're going to plug this one in. And because like I said, I am confident, I'm going to go ahead and reconnect our antenna cables. Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of demonstrations on the iPhone 6 Plus touch failures, and I still got tons and tons. See, I melted the sticker a little bit. It's a little crinkled, but it'll be fine. I still got tons and tons and tons of touch failure jobs coming in, but it affected the amount of them that had already been attempted. And not everybody that was sending them were people that had attempted them. Not every, you know, a lot of the people that were sending these things in are people that had them into repair shops. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead, so I might get a speedy boot. I'm going to use the customer screen. They were people that had them in repair shops and had the repair shop really screw them up. And since that shop had learned from me, they sent the customer to me. And I wound up dealing with the aftermath. And don't get me wrong, I really, really appreciate the referrals. It's totally awesome. But it has caused the majority of my job queue to be prior repair attempts. So as I sit here and I show how I fix this boot looping iPhone 7, I do it with some hesitation. And it's not because I want to hide the secrets and like hoard the good stuff for myself. It's because I'm genuinely concerned about my livelihood. So let's grab our iPhone 7 Plus lead here. Now we are going to hook our power supply lead up here. We are going to turn our power supply on. Always paying close attention to current draw. If you've put a chip down like that, you could have any number of things shorted underneath. So anytime you wind up doing something where you've got over 100 connections or something, when you turn the power supply on, you really got to watch it because you have to watch for anything that you could have shorted or done wrong. This one comes out at 0 amps and everything looks great because nothing's happening. We're going to push the power supply, or push the power button. 80 milliamps, 170. This phone should Apple logo. There we go. And now it is booting. Yeah, I've actually recently went back and watched some of my older videos and how I talked then compared to now. And I can sort of see over time the way things have changed. And it's really the difference of night and day. And today on this video, probably more than any time, it's just, you know, I've been round and round with some of these prior, what happened? It looped. It shut all the way off and then back on. I'm more than confident and blah, blah, blah. No, they just, yeah, okay. Did it shut all the way off? I'll have to go back and look. The supply dropped almost all the way to 0. I think this thing totally looped. Fishy behavior out of the iPhone 7, right? All right, guys. We are up to an activation screen. It took a home button click. We're going to do English. We're going to choose the United States. We'll set up manually. Oh, I don't have the Wi-Fi antenna in it. Wi-Fi antenna here. I'm going to go ahead and shut this phone down. Let's give it a minute to shut off, and if we watch the supply, you'll see when it's all the way off, it'll drop back to 0 amps. 0, yay, okay. Now, I am a little nervous about the behavior of that first loop, but I have seen stranger things turn out in success. All right, let's put the board back together. I tell you what, let's have a look at this piece that broke, because I want to know if that metal ground coming off from the side is even any importance. This is an insulator. It's made so that the screw doesn't ground that part of the PCB to the housing. So it's somewhat of an insulator, and because of that, I'm just going to put the screw right back in it. I am not sure why that is there, because it don't make a contact to the case. That's really strange. That might be some weird RF thing. Can you tell somebody's getting nervous? I just used the wrong driver twice. It would have been easier just to end my video. Now we got this crazy looking thing. Our Wi-Fi antenna. Okay, so that's all of our goofy looking brackets put back on there. Now we're going to do the screen assembly. Okay. So now we're going to close this little thing up. Click, click, click. I don't like to leave adhesive sticking out, so I always wind up picking and opening. And I have had very few people ask me to put that adhesive back on it. And the only reason why somebody would want you to do that is because they would think that it would increase the water-resistant properties of the phone. But I'm here to tell you, with or without that adhesive, this phone is not water-resistant. Maybe a little bit, but don't get it wet. If somebody wants that adhesive back on there, it probably means that they may be planning on getting their phone wet. All right, so let's pop the SIM card holder in there. And I'm going to hook it up to a charger. All right, so here we go. I'm connecting the charger. The charger is drawing. It's a little low. It's 60 milliamps, 1 amp. There we go. 60 milliamps, an amp. It dropped a little bit before it popped back up to an amp, and now it's at a solid 1.5 amps. So this thing is pulling really good charging current. I just felt a USB connect, and it's already up and running. See how fast that phone booted compared to the last time? Wham, it's up and running. Let's see if it'll activate without a SIM card. Got nervous there for a minute on this Wi-Fi connection. Hard to type sideways. There we go. I've typed in my Wi-Fi password. Now all of you know what my personal Wi-Fi password is. Okay. It's probably going to come back and say it wants a SIM card. You know what? I'm sure it will, because over here it said that it needed a SIM card. I should have ended this video already. Let's see. Let's see if it's... Oh no, my AT&T SIM card's gone. Oh no. That SIM card being gone means that I have left it in a phone. And that means that that's going to be the end of this video, because I'm not... this phone's going to be fine. This is a classic failure. But my only other option here is to pull the SIM card out of my personal phone, because my test SIM card is not here, and I have to look through a few phones and find it. So, guys, that is going to be the end of this video. This is a really straightforward repair, but it is excruciatingly tedious. If you've never done micro BGA rework before and you think that you're going to dig in on this and this is going to be your first one, there's a very, very, very good chance that you will wind up destroying the phone, because this sort of thing, it takes a lot of practice to get a finesse to it, to know when the solder's melting. I use the blade flip technique because I like knowing that just this tiny little bit of pressure is there, and the very second that that chip is melted enough to come up, it'll just pop off the top and it goes. But if somebody that doesn't have a finesse for that holds a blade up under one of these chips and starts prying up on it while putting heat on it, it's not going to end pretty. It's not as easy as I make it look. So although a lot of my videos, I make things look really easy, I am absolutely begging you to take your time on this and get a good feel for it. Because if you really want to do this stuff, you got to build up a finesse for it. I'm not going to ramble and rant any longer, because I have to move on to my next repair. And this one is successful. It's going to be good to go. So that's it, everybody. I hope you all are successful, and I thank you for watching. Have a good day. What happened? It looped. It shut all the way off and then back on.